It is Monday on Daily Delivery. Michael Rand here. Patrick Reusse joins me as usual. Patrick, the Vikings played yesterday. If this was a normal Monday, we probably would talk a lot about that game. I think today we'll spend maybe a minute on the game itself because contrary to what Kirk Cousins tried to tell us last week, it was not one of the most important games they were ever going to play. So we've got a lot to deal with. I mean, we can get to the final game of the NFL season as well, which had some adjacent tentacles to the Vikings as well, at least how it finished. But really, we got to start with just the status of everybody here, and it seems like the consensus is that Mike Zimmer, maybe even as soon as not too long after you're listening to this, will be fired, that Rick Spielman might be reassigned, and then everybody else will figure out who else will get sorted out on the roster. As you think about that, how does that strike you as a kind of a way to deal with what's happened this last season and the last few seasons?
Well, it kind of depends upon what Spielman's task is going to be. Is it going to be ceremonial, or is the new general manager going to be reporting to him, or what's the title going to be? And of course, the big thing to me is, all right, are you in a hurry to hire a coach? So are you going to hire a coach before you hire a general manager? Which would be really stupid in my opinion. And if they let Spielman hire the new coach, then obviously you haven't really changed that much. I'm not surprised at all, though. I thought Spielman was a survivor of I've been talking about that since the middle of the season, that he was in there stabbing Zimmer in the back trying to survive with the Wilfs. And that he was gonna somehow figure out a way to survive this. And I think he's a duplicitous fellow who takes care of himself. And so I guess I'm not surprised by anything. Zim, by all accounts, gave up a while back about the fact that he would have a chance to stay, obviously, once they were eliminated from the playoffs. But I think, he had an 8-year run, and he got what he just, probably got a little more than he should have when you consider how I wrote about this on Sunday. Ever since that loss to Philadelphia, things really haven't been the same. They had one playoff team, and it was not much happened after that. The Minneapolis Miracle, and goodbye Zim. You had a good run, and I think he gets paid for another 2 years, right?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, because I can't remember when all the extensions happened. It's at least one more for him. You mentioned the Minneapolis Miracle. I mean, the post-Miracle era is also the entirety of the Kirk Cousins era. And, we've talked about this before, but Zimmer said it at the scouting combine in 2018. If we pick the wrong quarterback, I'm probably going to get fired. Yeah. He's kind of seen this coming from, forever away, where if you invest that heavily in a quarterback and he doesn't take you as far as you want him to go, and he's taking up that much cap space, it becomes hard to win. It becomes hard to keep your job. As we think about Cousins, that's trickier. Obviously, you can fire a coach, hire a coach. You can't just fire a player who's got a $45 million guaranteed contract for 2022. And he performed reasonably well this year. I'm curious what a new regime, assuming a new coach and a new, someone who's the new general manager who has, authority over the roster, what they will think about what they have inherited, especially with Cousins.
I think there's going to be a lot of roster changes, but in the new era of 7 teams going to the playoffs and the Packers sort of in a horrible salary cap situation, and who knows what if the Packers don't go to the Super Bowl, I got to think Rodgers still wants out. So you look at the division, and it's hard to say, well, we got to redo this thing, because you can probably win it next year by going 9-8 if you when you look around at the lousy division in which you're going to be in. If Green Bay takes a step back, and if you get rid of Rodgers, you're going to take a big step back. So it's an interesting situation that they're not. You feel like they're in need of a redo, but I'm not sure that they're going to look at it the same way, because and then if you're not going to have a redo, then you probably keep Cousins, don't you? I don't know. I mean, what do you try to? Where are you going to get a quarterback? You're not going to draft. You're going to draft. You're drafting what, 12th in a draft that has no quarterbacks in it. So I don't know what do you do? You go get Gardner Minshew or somebody like that. I mean, I don't know what. And you and I, of course, last week disagreed on Cousins. I'm coming a little more around to your side. I'm not sure about getting a first rounder, but my trade is Baker Mayfield for 1 year, and let Stefanski have Kirk Cousins and get a draft choice or two from him. But people think I'm nuts because because Mayfield has had such a horrible year this year. But he only has 1 year left at under 19 million. So you could let him come in and try to establish himself, and maybe get him to run out of the pocket, and instead of get all his passes knocked down. That could happen too. But that probably won't happen. That's just something I threw out there. But I don't know if you think you're a contender to make the playoffs next year, you probably got to keep the guy, don't you? I don't know. Cousins.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake for 24/7 gaming, fun restaurants and bars, and luxurious hotel rooms. And join Club M to bask in the rewards. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
You might. I mean, he's right. We never put Kirk Cousins in the top 5 of the NFL, even if some advanced stats maybe put him close to that. You just watch him, and there's enough inconsistency. There's just enough of some of those, the quarterback feel that he doesn't give you, but he's above average. And it's just a question of what you think of yourself next year. That $45 million cap number is just so onerous that it feels like it's hard to make a 1-year decision on him to keep him, because, you need some kind of cap relief if you're going to put together a competitive team around him.
He's 35 now, isn't he? 34, 35.
Age? I think he's 33 right now. He'll be, he's 33 right now, but he's, but quarterbacks, that's not over the hill for a quarterback anymore.
It is interesting that he has gotten more backers in the last year or so. I mean, there's people out there who cover the Vikings with secondary blogs who have really gotten into him, that look at these numbers and blah, blah, blah. Well, yesterday was vintage Kirk Cousins.
Yes.
Ungodly rotten in the first half and good in the second half. So it was vintage. They desperately just wanted to try to lose that game in the first half, and then they came out and made a couple of plays and got a couple of breaks and ended up winning. But I don't know. He's an unlikable guy. He's not a leader of men, and he's the numbers are not the whole story, and and the numbers are not the whole story with him. Plus, the guy missed your last stand. The guy missed your last stand. He's a smug, unlikable guy, in my opinion. And I don't know if that should be the tell-all or anything. But if I can be between his salary and just who he as a person, I would get creative and try to get rid of him if I were them, and try to get somebody in here who you can, who you can win with Denny did pretty good with not having a quarterback. Right?
Yeah. He didn't have one until Randall Cunningham caught lightning in a bottle. He was just
forget Warren Moon.
Warren Moon, yeah.
Or tried Jim McMahon. That didn't work.
Sean Salisbury.
Yeah, Denny made the playoffs 8 out of 9 years with these guys when the division was better than it is now.
Jeff George,
Jeff George is my all-time Denny disappointment in Detroit when he put Jeff George in for the second half, and we were saying, "Oh man, we can get down there and grill Denny on whether Jeff George or Randall Cunningham is going to be the quarterback." And Denny walks in and says, "Jeff George, my quarterback." He said, "Oh, shucks." We thought we were going to make him squirm, and he couldn't. He didn't squirm. But, it's not, you can get the 2-year guy if you can move Cousins. I don't know. It's, but okay, Harrison Smith, I guess keep him. But, the ship has sailed on Anthony Barr, hasn't it? He doesn't.
Yes.
They healthy. They just got to. That's one thing to. That's one thing to get on Zim about is that they're whining that they couldn't spend as much money on defense as he would have liked after they signed Cousins and stuff, but. They spent plenty on defense this year, and
they still kept everybody pretty much.
Yeah, they gave a lot more money to Anthony Barr than they should have because the guy, he's a good player when he plays, but not great, and didn't play, and now you got the same problem with Daniel Hunter. What happens here now? That's what he's a monster, but he doesn't play, so it's a. You're right. This idea that Zim couldn't keep his defense. Well, they spent all the offseason they spent was on defense, right? To me, the big disappointment here is they've used all that draft capital on the offensive line, and so far you have O'Neal out of the collection, right? The rest of them are now we're too small, right? Now we're too small line. That's what we're saying. Bradbury is probably not going to have his 5th-year option picked up. And it's, you've been wrong on him. I think Darrisaw's got a chance, but
Cleveland's okay. Cleveland's okay.
Yeah,
so
he's a guard, but they're still like scrounging for an offensive line. Although that doesn't make them unique either. Look at Green Bay, all the success they have over there, and they're putting in new pieces of the offensive line and getting guys hurt all the time over there with their offensive line. The fact that they got a great quarterback has something to do with that. But I don't know. It's a quandary right now, and I'm not sure the Wilf brothers aren't more worried about the city they're building out there than Egan than they are about their football team. Things are going well with the new metropolis they're building out in Egan, and that could be their number one motive. I have no idea, but I'm not real confident in these guys, and they never talk about guy. Everybody always gets on Jim Pohlad. Jim Pohlad addresses the public more than the Wilfs do. Man alive, they're hiding constantly. They don't say anything.
No. I would, circling back on Cousins for a minute, I would try to trade him if I could this offseason just because his value is relatively high right now because he's coming off a pretty good season, and it just feels like a harder reset is necessary because I just don't know if this team is going to be built to win in the next year or two. But if you kept him, I think the thing that Zimmer could never fully embrace because of who he is that this team really in the last 2 years should have pivoted to being kind of having offense as its identity, not defense. Like he could never say, this is the best side of the ball. This is how we're going to try to win. Cause that's just not how he's wired. And so a potential new coach, and we've talked about this, is probably going to be a younger offensive minded head coach. And that person might want Kirk Cousins still to build that offense around.
I agree with you on that. And Zim is, Zim deteriorated as a leader of these guys. I think he did not. He peaked He peaked the year of the miracle. Is when they were 13-3 that year. The number one defense, and that's the way he thought they should continue to play, right?
Yes.
But then he also badmouthed Case Keenum the whole season in a sideways manner. So he's partly responsible for this huge investment that they made in Kirk Cousins. But I still insist that Kirk Cousins getting signed had more to do with the Wilfs than the Spielman, and certainly more than to do with Zimmer, because I think the Wilfs thought, oh, we want to go to the Super Bowl. We should have went to the Super Bowl this year. We need a quarterback, and the sexiest guy out there right now is this Cousins guy, and let's get him for the, we got the new building here, we got the new stadium, we got the new complex out here. Let's make ourselves this vibrant operation and go get the big name quarterback. And that's just my opinion on that thing. I think Spielman was more in on that than Zim was, but
yes.
Zim was never in on that guy. I don't think he wanted a new quarterback, but Zim has had a bad week with the bad couple of weeks with the fans. First with the Kellen Mond can't play, basically.
Yes.
2 weeks ago, and then yesterday saying he didn't care about Justin Jefferson's record, which I didn't either. But
no, I didn't either.
But you're not dealing with. When you're dealing with a collection of football fans, you're not dealing with intellects here. You're dealing with people who are emotional about things. And then a narrative is developed, right? A narrative is developed like, okay, Kellen Mond, he's a third rounder, but, you should, he's a great athlete and he's got this great potential. And so then all of a sudden he becomes the quarterback because he was drafted in the third round, didn't make him the quarterback of the future. It made him a guy to look at, right?
Yes.
Your third rounder is not definite. When you drafted Christian Ponder, 12th or 11th or whatever
12th overall, yeah.
He was the quarterback of the future. You were wrong, but he was the quarterback of the future. This guy was always a suspect, and he still is a suspect. But the idea that you are bleeping on the quarterback of the future when you say you see him in practice every week is nonsense. He is not the quarterback of the future. He's got to establish himself. And apparently everyone watching him in practice out there for the last several months has not been too impressed with the way he throws the ball. But the public, this whole notion too is why he should have played yesterday so we could find out something. You're not finding out anything. You're not finding that out. You're finding it out when he plays, and when he becomes your guy. And what happened Sunday against a Bears team that was only playing half of its defense would have had nothing to do with whether Kellen Mond was your quarterback of the future or not.
Correct.
It's just a narrative that develops. And here's another. I got to get into it now. The narrative that is developed about Justin Jefferson. Okay. He wants to break Randy Moss's record, even though he's got an extra game to do it in. So if you don't, in 16, you want, which is here and there, right?
Yeah.
The idea that he is going to be so mad that a coach who is getting fired didn't make sure he broke the record, that he's probably going to demand a trade in 2 years. What is wrong with you morons? What you're saying this is, people who are actually covering the team are writing this crap that, oh man, this is going to be terrible. When they give him the money, he'll take it. Who did they have demand a trade here? Who have they had demand a trade? And a star player demand a trade. When's the last time that happened?
I mean, flat out demand. I don't know. Stephon Diggs kind of did. I mean, they ended up trading him, but
he did. Yeah, you're right. Stephon Diggs did, and that was because of Cousins.
Yeah,
right?
more or less, and the offense and not catering to him enough.
Yes, Jefferson is, Jefferson is not, he got his numbers with Cousins.
Yes.
If Jefferson demands a trade, it will be because the quarterback that they bring in can't play, right?
Or that they're losing, or that, he doesn't like his role.
Yeah,
but you're right. He's whatever.
He had the third most targets in the NFL this year.
Yes.
You're not treating him fairly. What is wrong with you people? You're going to give him the money and he's going to take it. If that's if that's what the decision is. This is not the NBA where Cat decides he wants to go play with two of his buddies and win a game. They take the money in the NFL, and the fact that this guy's going to have a lingering resentment when he didn't set some meaningless record that nobody even knew existed until 48 hours before the game on Sunday is just so stupid. I can't believe it.
I agree. I want to circle back on Zimmer for one more minute, and then I want to get to a couple other things, non-Vikings related, before we finish. But it does feel like you talked about the miracle season 2017. Cousins comes in right after that. It felt like 2018 was the beginning of kind of pressure coaching Zimmer, where he was feeling it. All of a sudden, it was like he'd had some success, and now people wanted more from him, and that probably led to the decision after week 2 of that season to cut Daniel Carlson, their kicker, who ends the NFL season by kicking the Raiders into the playoffs and kicking the Chargers out of the playoffs when a tie would have gotten them both in the playoffs. It was one of the most fun, weird games I've ever seen Sunday night. I think the Raiders were going to play for the win more or less anyway, because, a win gets you the Bengals, a loss gets you a tie gets you the Chiefs in the playoffs. So there's incentive to win either way, but it was a weird finish where they could have just kind of run out the clock and let both teams get in, but then Chargers call timeout. They get a little extra time. They go down and have a long field goal by Carlson that goes in. It was just I've never seen a game like that where a tie gets both teams in and it almost happens, but ends up the Steelers somehow get in too now after the Colts lay an egg against the Jaguars, and the Steelers win in overtime against the Ravens. So quite a finish, but the bigger point being Carlson brings us full circle for that whole thing. Yes,
it does. And I blame Spielman for that. You cannot draft a guy. What round was he?
Fifth round.
Fifth round, which is as high as a kicker ever gets drafted, right? I think it's and you can't, when Zim is pouting because he lost it there, because he got a tie at Green Bay, you cannot let him cut your kicker that you just drafted, who had a bad last exhibition game, right? In the opener, I think he made the only kick he tried, right?
So I think that's right. Yeah, the opener he was fine. The opener. You
cannot do that. You say no. You're not cutting him. We're gonna give him another month and see if he's okay. But it was so idiotic to let this guy go. But it's funny, if you go back and look at local media, it was, this guy will never do it. They got to get rid of this guy. He's, another Blair Walsh. And, no, you can't let a guy be as impulsive as Zim was then. But you're right. That's example A of him starting to feel the pressure. And this year he was a completely different guy on the sideline, in my opinion. He looked depressed all season over there.
My wife, who never watches football, was looking at him during the Green Bay game a couple of weeks ago. She goes, he looks miserable. He looks like he's not not enjoying his job at all. I'm like, you're right. He doesn't. I mean, nobody would be happy when they're getting their butt kicked 37-10, but he just had this look about him like, I don't need this.
Yeah, right. But he needed it for his ego. I think, he's another, like most coaches, he's a suppressed egomaniac, and he's, that's the only reason you want to keep his job, is because he's not enjoying it. But he didn't want to be. Zim got fired, right? So
yeah.
To me, but yeah, it's you're right. I mean, I've been making a big deal about Daniel Carlson for a couple of years now because this proved to me you're dysfunctional between the coaching staff and the scouting department and Spielman and him. Spielman letting him get away with it because he's pouting was just idiotic. It was amazing. You got to give the kid another month and see if he can do it or not.
Yeah.
Even if it means bringing in some, that does. If you're unhappy with him and you want to look at, there's this whole covenant of kickers who are floating around who you can bring in, put him on your roster. You could have one kicker on your roster, let him be your kickoff guy and let somebody else kick field goals for a month. It's I don't know. But this was one of those years that just went in the tank from the day that the day that 2 days after the start of spring training camp when Cousins had to go into quarantine, and it was just been the whole mask thing and who was masked and who wasn't masked and who got hurt and who didn't get hurt and who was, it was a mess from the start. It just had the same vibe. We talked about this before as Chili's last year in 2010, right from training camp. It had the same vibe. So
yeah, it never went fully off the rails like that year. Maybe that's a credit to some of the players and just credit to some of the games they were able to win. But yeah, it never got unstuck from whatever it was stuck on. And I guess we'll
let me use this as my bottom line on yesterday, though.
Yes, please do.
We are mad at Cousins because he threw his touchdown pass to the wrong open receiver.
Yes,
what is wrong with you people? We're mad at him because he threw the touchdown pass to the wrong open receiver. What?
Yes.
It's
wrong.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
It is. And we'll get some answers, I assume, maybe starting even today about what they plan to do in the future. Patrick, you've got a few minutes left, but we should probably talk about the Wolves and the Wild because
Wolves. Go Wolves. What
Wolves,
the heck?
even their record 20-20 now, got a bunch of guys back, got healthy, got to play OKC twice and Houston once, and that is a good salve for any team. But yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around the Wolves being the team that's supposed to beat these other teams. It's just I'm not used to that narrative.
That's right, but they did beat them both bloody too. I mean, so that's you know what, I gotta D-Lo is playing pretty good.
I still don't know what it is on defense that he's doing that makes them so much better, but he just is. He's a one of those kind of pieces that is maybe a little bit more subtle than I want to recognize, but he's been pretty good this year.
And yeah, he's considering he doesn't like the new basketball, he's playing pretty well with it, and he's had those brick games, but his the other night I'm watching, and I mean Benz and Jim Pete are babbling on about something, and usually Jim Pete picks up on this. This guy made one of the great assists from out high on a little one bounce pass to a guy going in for a layup, and we didn't recognize it, but it was like, man alive, that's a big time assist from D-Lo, who a year ago we didn't even knew he had teammates, So it's I think that he's good, and everybody was. Here's the Timberwolves situation, though, right? They are two nights ago. They're beating Oklahoma City by 40. Weren't they ahead by 41?
Yeah.
And I looked on my Twitter account, and trending was Beasley. Because he's not making any shots.
Right.
This is what's trending.
Yeah.
Not what we're tweeting on Beasley because he can't. The number one subject with these Timberwolf fans on Twitter at that moment is Beasley not shooting well. Meanwhile, Towns is playing great.
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards makes 5 threes in the first quarter.
Yes.
Russell makes 5 threes in the second quarter. That's again, what's wrong with you people? Forget about Beasley. Beasley's a shooter. Some weeks he'll be hot. Some weeks he'll be cold. That's the way it is. He's no different than he's been since the day they gave him $60 million, which they shouldn't have given him. But the fact that how can that be your topic of conversation when you're watching this team play like they have lately? It's
reflexively, Wolves fans need something to complain about because they're so used to it. And by the way, is Jared Vanderbilt going to turn out to be the best player from that Hernan Gomez Beasley trade? I felt like he was a throw-in at the time, but he's becoming a pretty useful player.
Yeah, he can make great cuts and get to the basket. He's a hell of a defender and
rebounds like crazy, especially offensively.
Founding phenomenon. It's a great revelation. All hail to Gerson for that trade, right? Gerson and Paul Fenton. We don't give either of those guys enough glory, do we?
I thought about that the other day. You're right. I mean, they built a lot of what's going well right now.
Yes, they did. They did. Well, I have a lot of fun once in a while with the Wild saying that Fenton, what a job he did in 11 months, getting rid of those stiffs, Granlund and Niederreiter and Charlie Coyle, after we've sat around and waited for that nucleus to come through for about 12 years. But the Wolves are, I mean, Mike, they had that little stretch where Cleveland came in here and was ahead of, was ahead of them by 30 in the first half.
Yeah.
Just made them look like complete idiots. And then they went in this 4 or 5 game funk. So it's the NBA, and you never know who's going to be sick, and you never know who's going to be playing, and you never know. You look at the box scores of the NBA now, and you look at these unusual scores, and then the next thing you got to look at is who played and who didn't, right? They're out there playing with nobody. But this is right. They did what they did. They played 3 games they should win, and they won them big, and they on the road, a couple of them, and they should be an over 500 team, I think.
Yeah, we're right at it, and that's going to be enough at least to get him into the play-in and becoming.
I think Cat's been better than he's been in about 3-4. He was great the first 2-3 years, and when he played all the time, and then he kind of, started getting hurt or whatever it was. But I think his involvement in. There's another guy. He's going to want out of here. He's going to get traded, and maybe he will, but it's because it's more likely in the NBA. But right now, he looks like he's invested and he's playing hard. So.
Yeah. And I think this Chris Finch can coach a little bit too, which is a big piece of that puzzle. I
was talking to somebody who's been over there forever. They say he's just a great guy. He told me this story that there's this high school basketball clinic that they've always ask them if they can get the head coach to come over and speak. And I don't know if Ryan Saunders did it or not, but I don't think Tibbs did. But,
okay.
But Vince says, yeah, sure. What do they need? And they said, well, it's a 3-hour thing, but, maybe you can go over and do an hour. And he said, well, I'll do 2 if they want me to. I don't know what he did. He went over and did an hour with all the high school coaches. And then he says to him, hey, I'm going to Brits. Who wants to come over and have a beer? And like 50 of these high school coaches were over there having a beer with him at Brits. So that's the kind of guy he is. He's just he's Tibbs as far as if you cut his head open, basketballs are going to come flying
Basketball
out of it.
Lifer, yeah.
Basketball lifer, but he likes people better,
Yes. Yes.
And, I hope he doesn't, we don't get some hotshot new owners in here who feel like if they lose 3 in a row, they should get a new coach in here, or, somebody. I give him a run. I think he's pretty good. Yeah.
I think somehow, it's not it wasn't the glamour names, but Finch and Dean Evison with the Wild. You wrote about him, I think, a couple of weeks ago. they have 2 good wins this weekend. They're missing half their roster, but they still managed to beat Boston the other day on the road. And then they come back here the other night and managed to get one, even though that was looking dicey in that game.
They had nobody on the ice. And,
no.
Ended up. Let me give out a tribute to my grandson Luke from Woodbury, who was always referred to by me as the Woodbury Jinx, because I think he had one point where he'd been to 8 straight games and they'd only scored once, and they lost all. And I called him Woodbury Jinx. He texted me the other night. He was at that game and said he's 3-0 this year and he's not the Jinx anymore. So
there you go.
This team is so good. They've been able to overcome the Woodbury Jinx. But that team playing last night, they had about 8 guys from Iowa, didn't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, I like Everson because he plays fast.
Yes.
And the other thing is, Mike, this is the best team in the history of hockey when they pull their goalie.
You mentioned that last week. They're really good.
I mean, they had the puck for 8 minutes. I mean, they pulled the goalie with 8 minutes left when they were 3 goals behind. And the other team, the first time it took about 120-foot shot after about 7 minutes for the team to score. And then in the Winter Classic game, they did that again, and they had the puck forever out there.
Yeah.
And the other night they had to do it. They had to do it without the Russian, but they did it again with 35 seconds to go.
Yes, they
My
did.
My recommendation is that they pull the puck with 8 minutes left, even if they're ahead. They pull the goalie.
Put the dagger in. Put the dagger in.
Put the dagger in. But yeah, you got to like the guy. I mean, and he's both of these guys are like low profile, not much they want to be, but it's just, it's just like there's not big personality there. I think there's enough personalities there with both of them. They just don't look for the spotlight at all. So we haven't given it to them. And anyway, hey, one other hockey note. How about Moscow goes to Michigan State, beats them twice. They come back, have a big comeback, and then the goalie's leaving.
I know. How about that?
What is that?
Right in the middle of the year.
How bad are people are? The Carolina Hurricanes are not gonna. Maybe he didn't go to class. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe
I don't know.
Maybe. But that's a kick in the shins, isn't it?
Yes.
Another goalie they can go to, and they might end up being a national threat anyway. But that's not really good PR if you're Carolina with dealing with a college program as prominent as the Gophers, is it? All of a sudden, hey, the goalie's leaving, huh? Why? He's not going to go and lead you to the Stanley Cup. What's the problem here? I don't get it. But the kid wanted to sign, obviously, which is weird.
That was interesting. Anyway. Yeah. I was going to say we got to wrap up, but I'm starting to worry that Gophers men's basketball is who we thought they were.
Yeah, it was. They had one little run. If Jamison Battle's not making every shot he takes, because he got cold. He played great there for a while the first half, and then had a bit of a run. But he's their only, really good Big Ten player. Peyton Willis has done very well, and he has his moments. But there's so much size, and they did a pretty good job with that monster from Indiana. But in order to do that, they basically had to not cover 2 guards, who they then then just hope that they missed their 3-pointers. But yeah, if he could sign a contract for 6 wins right now, I'm sure he'd take it. Look at the schedule they got coming up.
It's hard.
It's
a tough league this year. It's a good league this year.
They go to Michigan State, right?
I think that's next. Yeah, pretty soon.
Yeah. It'll just be interesting to see if they continue to fight.
Yes,
but
I think they will.
I said the other day, it's a glorified Northern Sun team, right?
Yes,
it's a glorified. It's it's one pretty good player better than Mankato State usually is if they have a good team, So it's not, it's Augustana basically. So and they certainly, when they beat Michigan, we got a little excited, but it's there's just not enough there. And I was saying, Luke Lowy, the fisherman,
yes,
he was 0 for 8 yesterday, and and I looked it up and I said, oh man, this is a shock. A transfer from William and Mary is not having a good day at Indiana. That's I mean, where these guys are from,
right?
It's just unbelievable. And
yes.
If they keep fighting, we'll be impressed. But let's hope it doesn't deteriorate into 2-18 or something, which it could. So anyway,
well, I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about next week. I think a lot of the Viking stuff will get sorted out here relatively soon, and plenty of other good stuff going on right now as well. Patrick, thanks for joining me on Monday as always, and we'll do this again next week. All right.
All right, Michael. See you.
See ya.